And we're back now with our chief legal correspondent, Jan Crawford, and political director, John Dickerson. And Jan, you had a heavy load to carry this week. The court is suddenly back in the news and will be even more so this week. How do you see this coming down on gay marriage?
Well, you know, Bob, I mean, obviously, predicting the Supreme Court is a very dangerous business, as everyone saw last year. And when they took up the president's health care ruling, no one really saw that coming. That said, I believe that it's very unlikely the Supreme Court is going to say you have a constitutional right, a broad-based constitutional right to gay marriage. This is a Supreme Court that doesn't really like to get very far out in front of public opinion. 9 states now allow gay marriage. It seems unlikely, and I think people on both sides agree that they're not going to say to the other 41, you've got to change your rules and allow it.
So what would they do?
What's most likely, I think, particularly in that California case, which is the one they're going to hear first, and that's the one that bans gay marriage in the state of California. I think that there's a really strong chance that they're going to throw it out on procedural grounds. They won't even reach the issue. That means it'll go back down to California, the lower court decision will stay in place, and gay marriages will resume. I don't believe, and I think a lot of people on both sides agree, that they're going to inject themselves in that issue at this point. Now, of course, they may, and I know obviously opponents of that hope that they do. But there is a chance. This is a court that cares about some of those issues if you're the right party to be in the Supreme Court. Now, in the other case, I think they will get involved in that. That, of course, is the case they'll hear on Wednesday, and that asks whether the federal government can define marriage between a man or a woman. This is a very, very important issue for gays and lesbians across the country, especially in those 9 states that allow gay marriage, because under federal law, the federal government can't recognize those marriages. That means those couples can't get federal benefits. They can't even file federal tax returns. And this court cares about Congress bigfooting the states. And marriage traditionally has been an issue that has been left up to the states.
You know, I kind of in line with what you're saying here. I saw a piece where Justice Ginsburg, somebody talked about, and she's one of the more liberal, probably one of the most liberal members of the court. She apparently is on the record as saying that she thought the court, while she agreed with Roe v. Wade, thought that the court may have moved too fast in that area. So that's... And
you see, you know, people actually on both sides of the abortion debate saying, look, abortion was proceeding in the states in the early 70s. The states were addressing it. The court injected itself into that controversy and froze the opposition and allowed it to just explode. And there's a real concern by some people that the court could jump into this case and have the same effect. We saw some of that even in your panel discussions.
John, I want to get right to guns, which is the one thing we really haven't talked to today much about today. Once they finally get back from yet another vacation, Congress, the Senate, is going to take up some sort of a gun bill, but it looks like the assault weapons ban is not going to be in there. There's a real question as to whether they'll have a strong background check in there.
That's right. Most everybody who watched this knew that the assault weapons ban, even though that's directly tied to what happened in Newtown, was not going to make it into the final legislation. So the key thing to watch is this question of background checks. Now, on the more liberal side, they say there needs to be a record of these background checks. So if a crime is committed using a gun, you can trace it back to the person who's responsible for passing that gun along. What conservatives say is that if there's a record, what people are going to think in the gun culture, people who've grown up with guns, is once you have a record of a purchase, you're coming to get my guns. So when you talk to Senator Manchin of West Virginia, the Democrat who's trying to put together a bill, he's saying we need somebody that's a part of this bill who comes from that gun culture. Tom Coburn, the Republican senator from Oklahoma, was also a part of these negotiations. They say culturally people need to know you're not coming to grab their guns. That's the key tipping point. So into that sensitive moment comes these ads backed by Michael Bloomberg, the mayor of New York. And he tries to be sensitive to these ideas, but Michael Bloomberg is also the mayor who stopped people from smoking cigarettes inside and also tried to limit their intake of sugary drinks. Now, to somebody in the gun culture, the intervention of a man who tried to stop cigarettes and sodas means that this is a movement where they're going to come get your guns. And that is where we are right now going into this discussion about gun legislation.
One other thing, Jan, was North or South Dakota? North Dakota legislature put this referendum on their next ballot which would basically outlaw
That's right.
abortion. And if they did that, they'd be the first state to do that. Do you see that as spreading, as it were?
Absolutely. And your people on both sides of the abortion issue see states across the country increasingly passing these tough new laws to restrict abortion. And they say it's all about getting up to the Supreme Court, hoping to get a test case before the Supreme Court to see if this new Supreme Court now with 5 conservative justices will overturn Roe versus Wade. Very unlikely, though, even if it got that far, that would happen at this point.
All right. A lot going on at the court. Thank you all both. Thank you, John. We'll be back in a minute.